Hi, I'm Bethany and welcome to my channel. I'm going to show you how I do a 3D raised stencil with just one simple product. Let's get started! Is just lay down some little scrap boards to raise my signboard up off the table. It makes it easier for painting the sides. So then I'm going to give a first base coat of just Waverly chalk paint in the color black, and then I'm going to go over it with the white. And I'm not going to go all the way to the edge, okay? We're going to do a distressing effect. When you get the center painted, take a dry brush with very little of the same white paint on it and just go gently across the edges, okay? You're just going to wisp right over the edges. You don't want to press down hard or leave a lot of paint, because this is what's going to give you that awesome distressed look with no sanding. This is one of my favorite things to do on the sign. Like, it's so satisfying. And it's so easy if you give classes or have painting parties with this, because you don't need to make a mess with sanding or loud grinders. You just go over the edges and look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? I love this effect. I do it to so many of my signs and furniture. So once that first coat is dry, I wanted the inside to be a brighter white. So I'm just going to go over it with a second coat. And then I'm ready to lay down my stencils. Oh, there's my little dog. You can't see her head. So I just eyeball the distance for the stencils. You can measure if you want to. And then I just put little pieces of painter's tape, one little piece on each side. You don't have to make this super secure. You just want to keep it in place while you're painting. So then I'm going to use some of the red Waverly chalk paint. I don't have the exact color names, but I will put them in this video before I'm done. So then I use little triangle makeup brushes from the Dollar Tree, and you want to put a little bit of paint on your makeup brush. You don't want to put too much, because that's what causes the paint to bleed underneath the stencil. And so it's better to do 2 coats, come back and do another coat, than to put too much paint and make a mess. So here I am, just working on the E. It goes pretty fast. It's just so therapeutic to paint with stencils. I love it. So here I am putting on the second coat, and that's pretty good coverage. So I don't think I'm going to need a third coat. Now, when I got done with the stenciling, I just took a small brush and I filled in the bridges. I like to do this on my signs because I think it gives it a more professional, finished look. Now, some people like the stencil look, so I do think it's appropriate for some signs, but here I just wanted to fill in the bridges. So now it's time for the fun stuff. We're going to make the 3D raised stencil. So I'm just lining up and securing the stencil down with some tape. And then I'm going to take a regular home stapler and I'm going to staple the staples randomly inside the heart. Now, if you see here, I'm not putting the staples all the way in. I'm letting them stick out a little bit. They're not loose. They're in there nice and tight, but I need them to stick out a little bit, because this is what's going to give the mud, as it dries, it's going to give it something to hang on to and to grip onto, so that it doesn't just dry and fall right off your board. So just put staples randomly all over inside the heart, turn them. This is so fun. I don't want to stop. Like I just keep stapling. Oops, that one didn't stick in. So we're going to try again. This is just a regular home stapler. So don't break your staplers, guys. I mean, this signboard that I'm using is pine, so it's very soft. But depending on your signboard, you might have more trouble. Ooh, there's another one that didn't stick in. So I would just suggest try it with a cheap stapler and see if this works for you. There is another option that I'm going to show you if you don't have a stapler. You can use these little tiny wire brads. You can get a whole little box of them at Walmart. I think it's like $1 for a box. And they're just little tiny. You see how small they are there. And you can just take these and you can hammer them into your board. Just hammer them all over just like I did the staples. Leave them up about 1/4 of an inch out of the board. So you can do a mixture of both if you want, but this gives the mud something really good to hang on to. So you can see there, not all my staples are straight, but they're not going anywhere. Then you take this Easy Sand 5. Okay, make sure it's 5. You can get it at the hardware store. It's less than $10 for a whole bag. And you're going to measure, well, you're not going to measure. You're just going to pour some into a disposable bowl or cup and use a plastic spoon and add some water and pretend that you're making pancake mix. Okay, so you're just going to add some mud, add some water, and stir it up. Make sure it's not lumpy until you get a consistency like this. It's like a peanut butter consistency. You see that? And then we're just going to pour it all over the stencil. It's hard to record this one-handed, but you can see the idea here. We're just going to make sure it's nice and thick and pour it all over, and then take the plastic spoon and frost it on. Now I like my 3D stencils to have ridges and bumps and grooves. So I'm going for that look. I really like the raised dimension of it. Now, if you want it to be completely flat, you can frost it on with a flat top. But the look that I'm going for is just really rugged and ridged. People say, how did you do that? What is that? So here it is, guys. I'm telling you guys my secrets. So I just keep playing with it. Make sure that all of the staples or the little nails, make sure they're all covered. Okay, so it's probably about 1/4 of an inch or more thick. So I just keep going around making sure everything is covered. I don't want anything sticking up. You want to take the stencil off while the mud is still wet. Okay, don't let it dry. Take it off when it's wet. So just remove the tape. I'm going to take the tape off here. Kind of sticking. So when you take the stencil off, lift it straight up. Okay, don't tilt it, just lift it straight up. Ta-da! Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that. It's amazing. I'm always amazed when I take the stencil off and it like leaves a perfect letter or perfect design. So what it looks like right now is exactly how it's going to dry. When it's dry, it's not going to be shiny like this. It's going to be more matte. And it takes about a half an hour to 45 minutes. So here we are. You can tell it's a matte color now. I'm gonna take my red chalk paint again and a little tiny brush, and I'm gonna give it a first coat. I'm just gonna go around the whole entire heart with the first coat now. Because of the ridges and the little crevices, it does make some areas look darker than others with the paint. I like that effect. It's like a shadowy effect. But depending on the paint that you use, you can make it so it doesn't look so shadowy. Does that make sense? But I go back and I give this heart a second coat. I love painting it. It's just so fun. So once I got the two coats on the top, I also want to paint around the edge. Now this is kind of tricky. You need a kind of a steady hand. And I do kind of go off the side of the heart a little bit sometimes and get it on the sign, but that's okay. If anybody's looking at your sign that close, they might have a problem, right? So after I got it all done, the sign all done, I decided it was just too much red. So I went back over the L, V, and E, and I painted them black. I just set the stencil right back on top of the red and went over it with black. So there you have it, guys. Like, I changed my mind. My projects aren't perfect the first time I do them. I often have to go back and finagle them and repaint. So don't feel bad if that happens to you, because it happens to everybody. And this sign turned out so gorgeous. I'm so glad that I went back and painted black on top. So, and the black only took one coat. It just covered really nicely. So you see that? Just dab, dab, dab. Don't use too much paint. That's a problem with reusable stencils. Sometimes we use too much paint and we get a lot of bleeding. So just use like a dry sponge and dab straight up and down. Oh, so nice. I love painting with stencils. Anybody, if you guys can paint freehand, that is awesome. I've never been able to. I don't have any artistic ability like that. So here I am, removing the stencil. Look at how nice and crisp that is. Isn't that gorgeous? So that's the tips, guys. Here we go. Look at that heart. I went around the outside of the heart and I took a little baby wipe and I got a little bit of black paint on it, and I just went around the outside just to give it like a little bit more dimension and offset it from the sign a little bit more, give it a little bit more of a textured look or a distressed look. So I just gently rubbed it around the outside. It kind of made it look age a little bit. Look at that. Look at all those little bumps and ridges. I love it.